Matt LaFleur flat out asked in his media post-press conference last night after the Packers lose their first game at home after giving up 10 or fewer points, by the way, since Jim Harbaugh's Bears from Mike Ditka beat them 10-0 in Lambeau Field in 1991. So it's been a long time since they've seen a loss like this. And now they're 5-3-1. He was flat out asked about his job status. Do you think it's fair that Matt LaFleur is on a hot seat right now in Green Bay, Mark?
No. Matt LaFleur has been a hell of a coach. They've won a lot of games in Green Bay. No. Do I think that's fair? I think it's endemic of the National Football League right now, Rich. When you look around the National Football League, the level of inconsistency, especially on the offensive side of the ball, it's littered across the National Football League. So, you can sit there and say, hey, it's an injury issue. You can say, hey, it's a lack of preparation. It's a lack of continuity because of the way we practice or the lack thereof practice, all the different things that are attributing factors to the lack of consistent offensive play. And we've seen it with, we saw it on Thursday night between the Raiders and the Broncos and the lack of consistency on the offensive side of the ball, especially for the Broncos. We've seen it obviously in that Green Bay-Philadelphia game. We've seen Buffalo get shut out for 3 quarters against the Miami Dolphins. So we have seen this on a consistent basis throughout the season, and I think it points back to just the way we practice or the lack of practice, the lack of doing things in full pads, the things that have contributed to, offensive inconsistencies in this league.
Interesting. I mean, I'm going to call an Omaha here with my producer, Mike Hoskins. Put up the NFC and AFC standings because you're not wrong. With the NFC standings, you're talking about offensive inconsistency. The Eagles last night had it on the same field, right? And then you take a look at the Bears. That's been somewhat inconsistent. The Lions have a new play caller. His name is Dan Campbell. The Panthers are another example. The Vikings are another example for various reasons. The only outliers right now in that regard with 7-win teams, the Seahawks and the Rams, have not had those problems. And then you take a look at the American Football Conference. You mentioned the Bills being one of them. The Chiefs, had a nice stretch, but we've seen some up and down play from there. The Broncos, my goodness gracious, either there's a fourth quarter wake up or there isn't, but it doesn't matter when they're 8-2. The Steelers, we just saw it against the Chargers on Sunday night. The Colts and the Patriots may be outliers there as well. So you think it's an inconsistency due to practice and the way that I guess the collective bargaining agreement overall sets up the way players can be utilized in season and not, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think the other thing that happens is when you don't practice that way, it's really hard to establish an identity. This is what we are. And so, like, when I travel around the league calling games, it's unbelievable how much is called at the line of scrimmage. And it's always been, there's always been that kind of check with me or can it packages across the National Football League. But in today's game, like 80-90%, it feels like it's called at the line of scrimmage. Like, hey, we're going into the line of scrimmage with multiple plays. Like, we can run this or we can run that. Hey, if the strong safety's down, we're checking to a weak side run. If the weak safety's down, we're checking to a strong side run. If they keep 2 safeties up, we're going to check to a pass. And ultimately, it's to say, hey, we want to get a premium play based upon the look we're getting. Well, the problem is those looks change. The other problem is when you're always kind of waiting around as an offense, it's hard to establish an identity. It's hard to just come off the ball and shorten somebody's neck because you're always just kind of waiting around to see and letting the defense kind of dictate what we're going to do as an offense. And some of that is because you don't get to practice a lot of those things in the regular season. You don't get to say, hey, man, this is what we run. We're going to come off and in my time, I'm sure you've seen Dodgeball, the movie Dodgeball, one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
But Global Gym's, their motto was, we're better than you and we know it. And so in my day, like, we would line up and just say, we're going to whip your ass because we've run this 10,000 times. You've defended it 100 times. We're better at it than you. So you can line up in anything you want to line up. I've done everything. It's like you can line up in a 57 front, a 4-3 front, a 25 front. You can line up in 3-4 front. You can line up in anything you want. We're going to line up and we're going to whip you because we've done it so much more than you. Well, that's not how the game is played today anymore, because you don't get to put those pads on. You don't get to work those reps in practice. We've got to save everybody's, not only everybody's health, but we got to save everybody's feelings nowadays. We can't hurt anybody's feelings, because then that would be a penalty worse than I don't know what. But anyhow, those are the things that are going on in today's game. And I think it's one of the reasons you see so much inconsistency from the offensive side of the ball.
So are you saying, when you're wondering why the Eagles don't have an identity, they should throw a wrench at it? Is that what you're saying? Like, if you don't have a ball, you should just take a wrench? Sort of.
Yes. Because if you can dodge a ball, you can dodge a wrench. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows that.
Well, I mean, in that respect, Mark, though, is how does a team whose identity was so clear last year with the Eagles, have trouble finding it this year? Is it as simple as their offensive coordinator is new? I mean, let's turn the page to the Eagles side of things. Are any concerns here for a team that otherwise is atop the conference, despite how ugly it looks at times?
And part of that, is the growth. Like, hey, listen, new coordinator, it's always to get on that same page and have that same feeling. Like, I'm a big believer in, if we go up to a certain situation, and we always talk about situational football. I get into a certain situation and it's 3rd down and 2 or 2nd down and 2, whatever it is. And I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, 3 plays are coming in. These are the 3 plays we run in this situation. And it doesn't matter that the defense knows, because, again, we're better than you and we know it. And so there's comfort in that. There's consistency and continuity in that. And I think that that's part of the learning curve when you get a new coordinator. The other thing for them is, hey, listen, we ran the ball so effectively last year. Well, some of our offensive line has changed. We've had some injuries on the offensive line. We changed our right guard. So there's a lack of continuity there. So that changes a little bit. The other thing is, can we continue to put our quarterback in harm's way with the run stuff that we do? We want to develop into more of a drop back passing, organization. So that's part of the change that goes on. And then all of a sudden you feel, you get 8, 9, 10 games in, you're like, yeah, we're not very productive doing what we're doing right now. And so I think all of that feeds into it, where you want to grow as an offense, how you want to, develop as an offense. And then you've got, are your wide receivers complaining? Do they want the ball more? Is AJ Brown happy? So I think there's a lot of these things that go into trying to grow an offense sometimes. And I'm just a big believer in, when things aren't working, Rich, and this is just from experience of playing and then calling games and being around the NFL, most of my adult life, is that anytime that I have struggled or we have struggled as an offense, the answer is always simple it down. That's always the answer. Because when you have it as complex, and it becomes so complex that people have to think, I mean, we're a game full of PE majors, right? I mean, honestly, like I'm a general studies. I have a general studies degree from the University of Idaho, right? So like my education's an inch deep and a mile wide. Keep the questions, general, and I can answer them. Get specific, and we're going to be in trouble. So like, I think there's an aspect of it as I want to be as aggressive as possible. And the more I have to think, the slower I end up playing. And that's part of, you've got to call an offense not based on all the things you can do, but you've got to call an offense based on the dumbest guy you have on the offensive side of the ball, right? We got to make sure that guy doesn't screw up. And so you've got to be able to, we may have a bunch of smart dudes, right? And a bunch of guys that can assimilate and really understand multiple complex kind of play calls and all that stuff. But if we got one dumb dude on the offensive line or one dumb dude in the backfield, then we got to dumb our offense down to that guy's level so that we can be successful. And you got to realize that you'll never make up for that dude if he can't handle, the calls and the checks and all the different things that we do as an offense.
Mark Schlereth, keeping it simple here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Yes.
Sometimes you just waste your time with complexities. If there's there's one dumb guy, doesn't matter how many Harvard or Stanford grads are on your team, it's the lowest common denominator bringing you down.
The weakest link.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.